Hello and welcome, I'm Peasant, and today I'm going to be doing a zero difficulty run with Thunderspeaker, but with Branch and Claw, so we've got events in there, and we've got the tokens. If you want a base game zero difficulty run with Thunderspeaker, there's one on the old channel. It'd be called Spirit Island Zero, or something like that. But here we go. So I'm going to go through everything in painful detail. Here we go. Right, so Thunderspeaker. This is, by the way, this is the spirit I find hardest to play with effectively. Actually, Shadows is probably just kind of weaker than the others, but this is the one that just explodes my brain. Very, very powerful spirit. I think it's just maybe just, you know, there's a certain spatial element with this spirit at higher difficulty that means that I really struggle. But you don't need to know that. You need to know how it works. So Thunderspeaker is different to all the other spirits in that Thunderspeaker is actually going to use the Dahan to go on the offense rather than purely just moving them and defending them. The key things to bear in mind is you've got these things here. Your ally of the Dahan means that your presence will move with Dahan. So that adds a layer of complication, right? Because if you are relying on moving your Dahan to then target powers, that's something to got to bear in mind. You don't want to move your presence away from where it needs to be. The other key thing is that after placing Blight from a Ravage, for each Dahan that died, you destroy one of your presence within one range. So you've got to look after your Dahan that are nearby. In a multi-spirit game, as long as you just want to bear in mind, you don't want to push up too close to other territories where Dahan might die, because you don't want to lose your presence. Now, why do you care so much about your presence? Well, all spirits care about their presence, particularly in Branch and Claw. Because some of the events mean that you really want as much extra presence on the board. But Thunderspeaker cares even more because of this card here. This is like a major power basically that you start the game with. I think it's the most powerful start card in the game, or innate card. Just for what it does. So what is it? It's a 3 cost. It's slow. It's a range 0 in with Dahan. So you are able to move Dahan around, and your presence can move with Dahan. So this range 0 thing isn't so tricky for you as Thunderspeaker. And what does it do? It gets you a fear. That's nice. But this is the thing. Each Dahan deals damage equal to the number of your presence in target land. So if you could stack a whole ton of your presence in with your Dahan, it's multiplicative. So you could do really huge amounts of damage. We will, basically, the way I play Thunderspeaker, I'm not that good at Thunderspeaker, honestly, but the way I play, it's almost all revolving around this power here, and setting up for good manifestations. But there's more to this spirit. So that's the big slapper. That's the one. That's where the adversaries are scared of. Voice of Thunder is very useful for pushing your Dahan. So bear in mind, 4 Dahan with full presence, that's 16 damage. That's a lot of buildings gone. Thunderspeaker really is uniquely good at just clearing a land. Especially bearing in mind, this is their innate cards, right? They don't need to draft anything. They don't need to get a kind of a major power and a load of support cards to get the right elements. They can just do this kind of out of the box. Sudden Ambush. You may gather a Dahan, and each Dahan destroys the Explorer. It doesn't look as impressive as the other card. And often this is the first card I'll forget as Thunderspeaker. But it's kind of expensive. The way I play Thunderspeaker, I tend to not have that much energy. But this, crucially, you can use to destroy an Explorer and just prevent a whole build chain. So like Spirit Island 101, if you can... it's better to prevent a build than deal with a Ravage. Though Thunderspeaker changes that a little bit because you're good at counterattacking, potentially. And it's even better to prevent that build. It's better to kind of prevent the build than prevent the Ravage, kind of. And this is your way of doing that, but it's expensive. Interesting thing to note is that these start cards here, these innates that have the beast element, or sorry, the animal element. I should get my terms right. One day. That's how you trigger this ability up here. Which is a crucial movement ability. And so you actually find with Thunderspeaker that getting cards that have this animal element, it's actually quite an important thing to make sure you've got. And sometimes you'll end up playing cards like Words of Warning, even though you don't care about the effect. But while we're here, this is Words of Warning, and it's your only defend card you start with. It does damage simultaneously, which is kind of incidental more than anything else. But basically, it's your only starting Defend 3 card. But Defend 3 is enough for a lot of purposes that you're going to have. Of course, it does have you do need Dahan to be in there. But generally, you're going to be wanting to set up counterattacks. Part of the reason Thunderspeaker is so strong is that Dahan counterattacks are very strong. They're one of the best ways of doing damage in the game, certainly from a kind of effort to damage ratio. The difference between using Dahan for damage with Thunderspeaker and the other spirits is that you care if your Dahan die. I mean, obviously we all care, but you know it matters to your strategically because of this sworn to victory rule here. Every time a Dahan dies nearby, so within one range, you actually lose a presence, which is a big deal. The difference between base game Thunderspeaker and Branch and Claw Thunderspeaker or Jagged Earth Thunderspeaker is that events hurt you more than they help you, generally. Because the events often kill your Dahan, like from disease, things like that, or replace your Dahan, and you really need every Dahan. So I'd say that if you're kind of, shall I play with Branch and Claw, or shall I play with base game? I'd say it's considerably harder with Branch and Claw or Jagged Earth involved. So that's our start cards. Let's look at these powers here. So remember, this is the crucial thing. This just means that the power is fast rather than slow. And you don't need to do this. Sometimes it's better for the power to be slow. So yeah, just because you have 4 air, you don't really care. You don't necessarily need to do it in the fast. This can be useful in a close game towards the end. But you need this animal element here. Gather up a Dahan per air and push per sun. And this is a big deal. This is what you're going to use to reposition both your Dahan and, because of your ally the Dahan, your presence as well. Partly this movement of presence and Dahan is why for me this is my hardest base game spirit. And actually I think this is the spirit I find hardest out of all the spirits that have ever been published. Then we've got Lead the Furious Assault. So again, it's got this business about making it fast. You might, again, it's optional. Destroy a town for every 2 Dahan in target land, or destroy a city for every 3 Dahan in target land. Let's go back up to the spirit panel. So this one's relatively easy to get, but this one is hard to get unless you've uncovered these 2 spots on the track, because you get a fire and a sun there. So that's so yeah, unless you're unlikely to get this, honestly. It's rare. And now we'll have a quick look at the track and the growth options. So the way I tend to play Thunderspeaker, I go almost exclusively bottom track. That's not the only way to play it, but that's probably how I'll play it, because that's how I'm most familiar. Especially given this is the spirit I struggle with, right? Maybe I struggle because I'm making poor choices. Yeah, well, okay, I accept that. The top track has elements and energy. The bottom track has plays and this lovely Reclaim 1 spot. Now, why do we want Reclaim 1? It's just a great thing to have on any track, honestly, but you want to get your manifestation back generally. So some people play where they reveal to get to 2 energy and then go down the bottom track a bit. I tend to just go down this track almost exclusively, unless I want this air to make one of these fast. But we will play through that. The growth options are interesting. You've actually got a double power card growth here, which is great. And the nice about having 2 is that you're more likely to get that defend card that you might want. It's still quite a gamble, and with the fact that there are more cards in Branch and Claw, you also, you're more likely to be unlucky with the streakiness of the deck because it's bigger. Of course, you've got a double presence placement, and then you've got a single presence with energy. So generally, I'd say you always want to place as much presence as possible. But given that this energy boost here, this 4 energy that you get, means that you can maybe put in a manifestation somewhere, makes a huge difference. But that's enough generalization. Let's actually look at the board position. So we have an opening build in the sands. So there is a disease token here, so that will prevent that build. So, that's not too horrible. And then you've also got a build here. Now, there's already a Dahan in here. So we could just think, we'll let this build happen and then defend on a future turn with Words of Warning and clear this land. We could even possibly move a Dahan in here, as long as we play something with a beast element on it, so we could completely clear this land on the counterattack. And also, bear in mind, Thunderspeaker is incredibly powerful, but it's very puzzly. There might well be just a solution to this, where you win the game in 2 turns, because that's what Thunderspeaker's like. So I like to kind of start off either with this or with this, with placing presence. I have actually played at high difficulty going with the early double power card strategy. Because it's nice to have those power cards, but I don't know if I don't think that's actually good. So here's the funny thing with Thunderspeaker. Because you start with this power and you start with this option, you can turn one basically clear very heavily built up lands. For example, if I was to go with this option here and place a presence, I could place a presence in one of these lands, and then I could turn one and go Voice of Thunder Manifestation. So if I get that second play, and I could just move in here and just clear this land, especially as there's no build here because of this disease token, which is kind of wild that you can turn one, just destroy that coastal city. And given this situation here, this is defensible next turn. If we cleared this turn, and then we plan to defend here with Words of Warning next turn to see that defend 3, I think that feels pretty good. The one downside of going with this opener of Voice of Thunder and Manifestation, the downside, is that we don't have that beast element that we need to trigger this movement power. And this movement power is pretty worthwhile. And then we've also got this little thing here. We could just prevent this build this turn with Sudden Ambush. So we could, each Dahan could destroy an Explorer, and we could just prevent this build in here. I mean, it's almost like, which sledgehammer do we use in this situation? This disease token here is going to prevent this build, which means that next turn, unless the event deck messes us up, and the event deck will mess us up as Thunderspeaker, this is defensible with defense 3. Now, when you're playing with events, you might want to over-defend, especially as if my Dahan die in a Ravage, it's absolutely disastrous, because I lose presence as well. It could just turn one lose, for example, well, maybe not lose, but be in a very bad situation. If, let's say, I plan to defend with a defend 3 against an attack 4, because there are events that will just add damage to cities doing it, and because then I could potentially lose 2 presence, 2 Dahan, and you only start with 6 Dahan, so that's not something I'd want to do. I'd rather just let this land blight than risk a risky defend as Thunderspeaker. As anyone else, it doesn't matter as much. This is a lot of talking. And yeah, but I'm just gonna be brave and try and do something. So the Sudden Ambush will mean we get to move our Dahan around, which is beneficial. I like to aim to manifest almost every turn. So typically on turn 1, turn 2, you're thinking, well, do I manifest this turn or do I manifest next turn? That's the kind of decision there. And the nice thing with going with Manifest is because it's slow, you can respond to the explored card. So it's that weird thing where slow powers, when I first played this, I was like, oh, slow powers, they're slow. But actually, they're kind of almost faster than next turn's fast powers. There you go, there's some tortured logic for you. So if we don't manifest turn 1, we could ambush in here, prevent this town build. And we don't want to Words of Warning this turn as well, because that will be our other beast card, right? And then we won't get that free Dahan movement. So what we could do is maybe turn 1, Sudden Ambush and Voice of Thunder to set up for next turn. And remember what I was saying about I don't want to use Words of Warning to defend in here because it's too risky. It's one of those things where it's a small risk, but it's so bad if it goes wrong that I don't want to risk it. I'd rather just let this blight. So I think I'm going to kind of plan to let this blight. I'm going to use Sudden Ambush this turn, and I'm going to use Voice this turn to set up. And we'll plan this after we see where it's been explored. All right, so how do I do that? I need 2 energy to do that. I've got 2 ways of getting 2 energy. I can either charge down this track, which is kind of decent, right? The trouble is then I can only play 1 card. Or I can gain the energy like this and go down this track. And that's what I'm going to do. So I like to place my presence in with the Dahan because you have all these Dahan movement abilities. So you see here we've got Gather the Warriors. So we can gather 2 Dahan and push 1. And I like to have 2 stacks of 3 Dahan as a general rule. And I have a whole load of cobbled together rules of thumb for this spirit because I find them so difficult to use. It's and all these things are just my own little rules of thumb or things that other people have shared as a good idea. So we've prevented that build by destroying the Explorer. That build's been presented by the starting disease that you'll find on the coast. And now we know where is being explored. So... Alright, so we now know that there's going to be a city built here next turn. We also know there's going to be a town built here this turn. So what we can do is we can set up to destroy the city after it's built with Manifest. So we know that that's going to be built, and then we're going to have our slow phase. So I'm going to set up for that. I think that feels useful. So we've got this push up to 4. And we can also potentially gather... we could use this to gather a couple of Dahan in there. So a city, a town, and an explorer. That's 6 health worth invaders. So I'd either need 3 Dahan. Let's do some maths here. 3 Dahan and 2 presents, or the other way around, as the kind of most efficient way of doing that. So I think what I will do is okay, the other thing you need to bear in mind, events can just kill your Dahan out of nowhere. Which is why Branching Claw does nerf, and Jagged Earth, they do nerf Thunderspeaker a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 4 Dahan in here. Yeah, we can... I'm going to just use Voice of Thunder. Actually, yeah. And that's because... Though thinking about it... Actually, wait. I wasn't joking when I said this is the spirit I find hardest. I'm actually going to put 3 in there, and what I'll do is I'll overcompensate, but with presence next turn, so that if a Dahan dies and we go down to 2 Dahan in there, then I'll have 3 presents in there. So I just need to remember to do that. I'm actually going to push this one off in a different direction. I'm not going to push it in with here because we don't want it to die. I'm going to push it down here so it's closer to these ones in here. And now I've got to decide about moving my presents. So I'm going to aim to have 3 presents in here next turn. So I'm going to put 2 in here this turn, and then place an additional presence now, which is the growth phase, the start of the turn. Okay. So we're going to have 4 energy this turn, which is enough to play both of these. I'm not going to defend in here, which for some will be unbearable. Just look away from the screen when the ravage happens. And as you know, we always want to delay the reclaim as a general, especially a spirit like this that doesn't place presence in their reclaim. We also probably want to try and get down to 3 actions, because once we've got this reclaim 1 spot, we're very happy. So typically you don't want to go double this one, or because that reclaim 1 spot is amazing. That'll mean you can delay your reclaim even further. So let's go with this. And remember, I want to have 3 in here, and that's to cover for that an event might kill my Dahan in there, one of my Dahan in there. It's unlike... I don't think there are any events that will kill 2 Dahan, but I've been wrong before. So I'm now going to place this one here into here. Again, that's kind of setting up for a future, potential future manifest. So we're going to manifest in here. Now... Words of warning, I've decided I'm not defending here. I can't even target in there, but I could just play it for its elements. So the benefit of doing that would be that all of a sudden, whoa, look, these things have popped up. So actually it's a pretty clear, good benefit there that I'd actually not factored in. We've actually got Lead the Furious Assault here, because we've got the 2 sun and the fire. That means we could actually destroy the town that gets built here this turn. This is the glorious thing about slow powers. So yeah, that's definitely worthwhile. I was actually mainly thinking about using it for gathering, because that beast animal element there means that I can now use my air and sun elements to move my Dahan around. Especially as we're going to completely clear this land, it's a real waste of our primary resource to leave these Dahan in the middle of nowhere. So we're going to finish... I'm going to click finish there. And we are... I guess we could target this somewhere. Let's just target it here, just for the sake of it. Yeah, I've not crunched the events. Part of me really is resistant. I was planning on making a whole video about events, but part of me really doesn't want to crunch the events. So like Tokyo, oh yeah, it's a 50% chance of this. Okay, so add an explorer to a town without invaders or Dahan. So this decision here, I tend to pretty much always prefer to be towards the coast. Just as a general rule. But a lone explorer is not going to do a lot. So I think I'm going to just go with that. I don't think there's a lot to this decision, really. Particularly with Thunderspeaker. So we'll just put it in there. And looks like the rest of this stuff got... each spirit with at least 3 Dahan among its lands gets to use a slow power now, which is what's clicked up now. We actually don't... We want the city to be built here. Because it's just free fear for us, because a city will be an additional 2 fear, which will actually get us some fear cards. And so we could potentially rearrange some Dahan, but we also don't want to do that now. So we're just going to... Yeah, we're in this bit. So I'm actually just going to click finish using powers here. So that's a little bit confusing, but we're now into the invader phase. So that was the event messing with things. We've got this Sand Ravage. That's fine. We don't care. That was planned. But I'd say for beginner players, just letting a land go, just a weight off your shoulders. Because if you can use the space that letting a land go allows you to really either build up your power by acquiring cards or placing presence, or clearing interior lands, which means that there are less explorers. You know, that's what you want, really. So we will do this. So 3 3s are 9. That land is now empty. And we've got Furious Assault in here, which will clear this town. And now we've got Gather the Warriors. So let's look and see what's happening next turn. We're going to have a town built in here. A town built in here, so in the jungles. So we can then kind of... after they've built, they then ravage. So we could think about defense, but again, it's so bad to lose a ravage, and the events could make that happen. So it's like events definitely change Thunderspeaker. I feel that. So you don't. So in base game, this Words of Warning defend 3. That's rock solid. Nothing's changing that. I almost kind of want to tempt fate with it because it's such bad news that I kind of almost want to show off what bad news it is to have one of these go wrong. Okay, what I'm now considering is where to move my warriors. So, my Dahan with Gather the Warriors. So we've got 2 Gather, 2 Push. So we could basically put these 2 of these anywhere we want on the map. They're currently not doing anything here. The other thing we need to consider is our presence for targeting purposes. See, what I would like is to smash this coastal city and be in a position where there are no buildings on the board, which might mean we get a quicker win. So I think 3 Dahan, 3 presence is a nice rule of thumb there. So we could easily gather into here and push into here. But then we don't have any presence up here. Something else to think about is that sudden ambush here, each Dahan destroys an explorer. If we could get 2 Dahan into here, which we could, that could be something we do, then we could prevent this build in here. This beast here might just kill this explorer. And then we could kind of converge on here and clear this land. And in this case, this is going to build a town, and then next turn, the turn after, it's then going to ravage for 3, which is like, so I could plan to use Words of Warning to match the defense, which is a bit less risky than defending an attack of 4, because there's that extra buffer. So I actually think am I gonna aim to use sudden ambush and prevent this build? I think I am. We're also going to have this crucial moment where we're going to be reclaiming this turn, possibly. Though remember, we could reveal this reclaim 1. Oh. Oh. Yeah, let's ask the beast to help us. So we're gonna bring these presents with us. We're not obliged to push both of our Dahan into here, but for the purposes of potentially preventing the builds in here, that could be good. So we have no cards. That doesn't necessarily mean reclaim is the right thing, especially in this case because we can reveal this. But we would then be limited to 1 card from our discard this turn, which is not really good enough. And I'm really keen to look at some power cards. We've also got a turn off, by the way. We've got ravages. We've got a single damage ravage and just a ravage that doesn't happen. So I think that's fine. If we claim this turn, we're actually going to have hardly any energy at all. So that's something to consider. We're not actually going to be able to use sudden ambush in here. Honestly, peasant. Honestly. But I think that's what we're going to have to go with. Okay, and again, minor powers all the way. As Thunderspeaker, we start with a major power, right? We kind of don't need other ones. There are some great major powers for Thunderspeaker, but they're often, just extra lashings and lashings of gravy. So what have you been given here? All right, so when we're thinking about minor powers with Thunderspeaker, Dahan movement and Dahan powers are often very relevant, but also this animal element, because of enabling this Gather the Warriors, is good. Defend cards as well are great because defending is great. Counterattacks are great, and this is a defend 5, which is way nicer once you've got Branch and Claw in the game. This is also a defend and it's fear, but it doesn't have that crucial animal element on it. But yeah, whereas this beast is relevant. It's very relevant. Rack Root here, because we're over-explaining, I will just go through this. So it doesn't really have elements we care about, and it's not solving problems that we're worried about either, really. I mean, it is 0 cost, though. That is something that goes for it, and these wilderness tokens, Prevent and Explore, are, they're very, very good. That's a weight off your mind as well. But Sap is clearly the preferable option here. Twilight Fog, I mean, yeah, it's not as good as Defend. In a world where we didn't have Sap the Strength of Multitudes as an option, it might have been more tempting. It has the air element, which might meet, and it also has the sun element. And we can, in theory, push Dahan with it. This is better. This is better in harder games that are beyond the scope of this video. There he said it. That was an excuse. I mean, I've done some howlers in these videos, like I'm doing this because this is what I'm doing, but at least I'm conscious of this one. All right, so the next option. Okay, another defend card's very tempting, and it has really nice this sun and fire, which is unusual combo actually, surprisingly unusual given that the sun is basically just a fire. I'm just looking forward to those angry comments from physicists. But Manifestation of Power and Glory is the only start card we have with that. And why do we care about Sun and Fire? Because it enables this. And it's a Defend 4 card as well, which is pretty good. We've already got a Defend card. Promise of protection that promises much, and it has the Beast, but I think the Elusive Ambushes is that much better, just because it has that Dave Fire thing going on. But this is also pretty good. Inflame here is kind of... Actually, we could get both. We could get the Threshold on this. And all these tokens are very powerful. But we're more about just smashing everything, really, than preventing stuff, as a general rule. I'd say that's where our strength lies. And Song of Sanctity is not useful for us. So I'm going to go with Elusive Ambushes there. Okay, so now we have 3 plays. We have a single energy. So we could just think about doing these things because that's what we can afford. And then next turn we can go for this gain 4 energy, get our reclaim, and get one of these useful cards back. But this defend is kind of irrelevant because there's nothing to actually defend. But it will give us the animal element, which frees us to potentially use, say, elusive ambushes, and also then get furious assault. So there is going to be a town built in here, as there's also going to be a town built in here. So we could use gather the warriors to gather this Dahan here into here and destroy this town after it's built. That sounds reasonable. That sounds very reasonable, peasant. So this sap is irrelevant, but you may as well put it in here. And this, I'd actually not considered actually using this card. So what we'll do is we'll use this to ambush in here and do a damage. Okay, so during the next normal ravage, each town does +1 damage. So yeah, this is exactly the kind of card that I've been going about. And no lands for the beasts. And the final thing is add a Dahan to a jungle or a wetland. Okay, so this is one of those situations where the event deck helps you as Thunderspeaker. They do exist. Let's make a 3 up here. That's actually pretty nice. Thanks, event deck. Each player removes an explorer from an inland land. We don't have them. We're too busy here cracking this wall up with a sledgehammer. Okay. So, we've got a Furious Assault, and we've got our Gather the Warriors. So, we can... Where are we with our cards? So, 7 Fear till we get to Terror level 2. Okay, just had a short break there. So, Furious Assault, we only have one place we can do it, where it actually destroys anything. That was the last town on the board. The end should be in sight. Okay, so we're going to push from here. These Dahan here have still got something useful they can do. They can kind of defend a... They can defend a Ravage next turn, and we could even get the sap back if we reveal this Reclaim 1. So, we're going to push from here. Push them into here. And we'll bring the presence with... I think you almost always want to bring the presence with you, unless you've got a very specific thing in mind. I mean, those, you know, that does happen. You will sometimes have that. And we've actually got 1 air and 2 sun. So we could gather this into here, say, and then push into here. Yeah, that looks reasonable. I think we might be able to clear it. We might be able to just clear the board next turn. Let's see. Okay, so there's a Ravage here with 2 attacks. So if we defend with Words of Warning, fingers crossed, that land's clear. If we manifest in here, 2 2s are 4, which will clear this land. And there is a build in here. But if we reclaim, say, Elusive Ambushes, that's a damage to this. So we could clear the board. That doesn't happen to me very often. Is that... We have a singular energy, but we can gain 4 energy here. Which will uncover this Reclaim 1. Let's put a safety presence in here if we're going to use Manifest. Let's get our ambushes back. Manifest, Words, Elusive. That's all 3 of our plays. And the event could still wreck us here. This is why events are a nightmare. But this is a kind of a clean plan, so we'll go with it. So we can use this to destroy this Explorer. We can defend in here, and we could manifest in here. I guess the trouble is that this is going to happen in the slow phase, so we might not get to clear... Well, we probably won't get to clear the board, but I think this is still a good turn, so we'll do it. Elusive Ambushes. Destroy this. Get out of here. Preventing the build. Words of Warning in here. That Ravage is now defended. Let's see what the event card is. Health Yond. For the rest of this turn, buildings have an extra health. Yeah, okay, that could go, oh no, a nightmare, but it looks like Coming of Age down here at the bottom is going to add us an extra Dahan where we might have wanted it, we might need it. So we do get to add a Dahana here. So this is now... Okay, we had kind of overcompensated here, so I think we are just fine. But we'll add one in here. And then we have the jungle ravage. This land is now clear. There's no one in the wetlands to build. Okay, we got very lucky there. They explored in the desert, so we should finish it this turn. Of course, if they'd explored, if that had been coastal, if that had been anything but a desert card, there would have been another round. Yeah, there would have been another round. But as it is now finished. Because we have now cleared the board of invaders. So, let me know if you liked the video. Like the video if you like the video. Comment if you have any questions. As you see, I was slightly out of my comfort zone there because this is a spirit I find this hard. A hard spirit to use. Over time, I am hoping to have runs like this for every spirit that has been released, all 24 of them. Yeah, and I really appreciate comments. And if people have things they want to see, I generally will. I don't get enough requests that I have to say no to anyone. So you know, just comment in there. And I need to think of new outro comments. Let's try and no, we'll go with the spirit one. Yeah. Until next time, that's it. Keep it spiritual.